Okay, good morning, guys. Let's talk really briefly. I'm trying to keep this as short as possible. Let's talk briefly about the crazy day that happened yesterday and actually what's happening right now with some alts. It's some things you just can't predict. That we did actually predict in the last Q&A, which was Saturday, I believe, is we talked about this one for NOM where it came up, came back down, and the 4 hour cross was happening for a bullish cross right there. And we got our bottom signal at the same time. And there was a Bollinger Band take profit area right here, for if somebody had taken a short. So we had one in close proximity, even though there was a top signal, but our EMAs were turning up, and that's what we really cared about. So yes, pay attention to the signals, but don't let the signals be the only thing that you pay attention to. Be watching your EMAs, and if you get a pump and then it comes back down and it retests perfectly, just like that did, you can see that wick right there, and it held above the 4 hour. And then the next candle, if you wanted to wait for the next candle, that's fine. This one held above the 4 hour as well and actually closed above the 21 daily green EMA right here. So the yellow and orange are your 4 hour EMAs, and then your green and red are the daily EMAs. They're on the same chart for you. And what happened was, as soon as this closed above the 21, then you got a fake pump above the 51, and it came down, and that wick touched the 21 perfectly. So if you start seeing things like that, this, it probably means the token's about to have a nice pump. And, this token can keep going. I'll show you one here that, the daily RSI is kind of overheated, 80, but it doesn't mean it's going to slow down immediately. It really just depends on Bitcoin, right? As long as Bitcoin holds its gains, or if Bitcoin goes up and doesn't go crazy, then alts can pump. But of course, if Bitcoin drops, then, all of these would lose all their gains. So if we looked at STO, I just want to show you something that you can maybe predict the future on some of these. So you had this one right here with STO that just went crazy. I mean, even this one, we could have gotten into it had we been watching this one. How would we have known? Well, 4 hours was turning down here. Let's zoom out even more. So what we're looking at is we had a support level right here that got swept. And when we talk about that, these are just some things that you can add to your tool bag to be watching for. When we talk about that, we know this was support from way back here. It had only been touched once. It didn't hold this time. It actually came back through it. So sometimes when that happens, when it doesn't hold the second time, it's just a sweep of liquidity. They're going to come down here, grab that liquidity, and they're going to pump it. Now, there's no way you would have known that it was going to pump this hard, but you could have had a nice little move if the candle closed back above this line right here. So from a macro perspective, if we just turn off this, our indicator, we would say, okay, if this support level gets reclaimed, which it did right here, and it holds on the next candle, then there's a chance this thing could move up some more. And not only that, but you had a trend line right here that got, it broke above it here, it came back down and retested it, and then it took off. So these are some of the things to watch for. In hindsight, it's easy to show stuff like this, but be watching for things like that. So here we are on the weekly. We have some nice signals here. Had a top there, had a bottom there. This bottom, had you bought it, it would have held the support and pumped some more. Here's a top. This bottom failed, but you would have known not to take this trade as soon as you saw this next candle reject the 51 on the daily. So these are some of the things you have to think about, even if you're just looking at the signals. So don't just pay attention to the signals, also pay attention to what's going on with the macro chart and, with the EMAs, that sort of thing. Because the safest play that you can possibly take is, here's kind of your first trigger. And you're saying, okay, I've got a bottom signal. I've got the Bollinger Band take profit. If this BBTP is under the price action, that means that it could be a place to take a long. Or if you took a short up here, it's probably a good place to start taking some profit. You're just taking profit off that short. But here you go, you got two signals telling you that this could be the bottom. And what you're waiting on now, if you want to play it super safe, is you're just waiting on the 21 daily, the green, to cross above the 51 daily, the red. And once this happens, now you're just looking for a pullback to either the 21 green or the 51 red. And if either of those two things happen, you take a long. And this one just so happened to work out perfectly. And you didn't have to come way back down here and be worried about this whole trade. You didn't have to buy way back here. You waited for this to happen. Now, if you would have bought back here, what you would have been looking for was number one, the 4 hour has to cross above, which it did here, and it got above the 21. So as soon as this happened, you could have taken a long on this bottom signal, but then it fell back below the 21 and the 4 hour was crossing down. So you would have been out right there. You either would have taken a small loss or you would have broken even. And then your 4 hour started to turn back up right there, crossed above the 21, came back down, retested the 21 perfectly. That's your buy signal, your next buy signal. So you either could have bought here or you could have bought here. Either one is correct. But this one is going to be, you're going to be much more patient for this one, but this one's much more safe for you, where you have a lower chance of losing money. What else did I want to show you? Here's some shorts that I'm looking at, DEX, and I'll show you why. So here we have BBTP on the above the price action. That means if you took a long down here anywhere, you should be taking, small profits as it goes up here. But now what we're looking at is this thing can also tell you it's a good place to short sometimes. So if we just zoom out here real quick, we'll see where most of our resistance is. Typically, if you lose support, like right here, it lost this support right here. It didn't reject it perfectly there. I mean, if we were saying a perfect rejection, it would look more like something more like this. So if we're taking this into account and saying, okay, this was probably close to the support before, and now it fell way through it and then rejected it right there. Well, as things comes back up, since this was a strong rejection point and it used to be support, then this is now a strong rejection point for this pump. And, maybe this is just a sweep of liquidity and it falls back down. So that's what I'm looking for. And look here, even on the weekly, you got a bottom signal right there that worked out really well. You could have made a nice profit on leverage or even spot. I mean, that's 100% spot move. So I think this is probably an area of rejection here. We'll just have to see. I did take a short, albeit a small one, but I did take a short position here. If for some reason it keeps pushing up higher, I'll probably just close it and see what happens. You've also got like a trend line here working. I don't know, that doesn't really work out too well though, does it? I guess you could take from this point to this point and say, maybe it's going to reject there, possibly. It's kind of like a broadening wedge type looking thing, something like that. Anyway, you don't have to worry about all these lines and everything. You don't have to do that. So on the daily, what we're looking at is we got these two signals. It could be turning down. Just like if you were looking for a long, it's the flip side on a short. If you want to play it safe, wait for the 4 hour to cross down at minimum. That would be the yellow going below the orange line. So that's the yellow 21 EMA on the 4 hour and the 51 EMA, the orange one on the 4 hour. So at minimum, you would have to see that. It becomes a stronger possibility that the short is going to work for you if you get something like this, where the 4 hour has already crossed down. This 21 daily EMA kind of does like that, and then it comes up and rejects it. So this would be a safer short for you right there, or even wait for it to get below the 51 and then reject it. But it's going to take a while for that to play out. You have to be patient with it. Okay, I just wanted to keep showing you the ways to dissect this, to break it down. I want to keep showing you the way that I would view these. And the more we look at it this way, the more we practice this, the more it becomes second nature, and you just open a chart and you're like, okay, yeah. And remember, like here we go right here. This one's extremely oversold. You can go down to a 4 hour if you want, but trying to guess that this is the top just because you want to try to make all this money coming back down, it's a very risky proposition. So I would suggest not doing that. I've lost a lot of money doing that before. But just looking at this one from a macro perspective anyway, we could say, I don't know, I'm just trying to look for rejection points and where it lost support. It's hard to say. Do we see something more on the daily? It's hard to say where the support was here. Maybe somewhere in here looks about right, because you got that right there and you got a rejection right there. Okay, so we'll call this the support that it lost and go back to the weekly to where it's not so, it's too many signals. So this thing could still push up to here. So that's why you'd have to be careful. But you could put you an alert, just add you an alert there. And if this hits this area, watch, maybe go down to the 4 hour or something and watch to see how it reacts. If it gets a big rejection candle where there's a big wick, kind of like it is right now, up here somewhere, then that would be a safer guess to see if that was the top. But still, that's very risky. You're better off waiting for the EMAs to start turning down, that sort of thing. So I just want to say be careful with that because you can lose a lot of money trying to guess where the top is. Yeah, I mean, this is what I was talking about at the beginning of the video, is just there's a lot of crazy, pumps out of nowhere right now. And usually when this happens, it's because a lot of tokens were way oversold and, they're kind of finding some support, but it's going to take a while. They'll have an initial pump like this, and then Bitcoin might drop to that 51K level. And then finally they'll, start to bottom out and be ready for another push up later this year. But yeah, just enjoy this, learning experience and see if you can take some of this forward to where you have it's almost like a job to fall back on if you need it. So it's good to learn. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and y'all have a good week.